Hi guys, welcome back to another video. My name is Dan Hookham from Component 6. Today we're talking about AI and local government foundations again, and today we're going to be covering off strategic change with AI. So we're going to cover in the video a bit of a revisit and overview of the difference between AI for personal productivity, process optimization, strategic change, why become an AI enabled LGA and what does that indeed look like, what does an AI enabled LGA culture look like, and what are the steps to becoming an AI empowered LGA. Well, first up, you'll have seen this before, but we split AI into three very clear areas, and we do that because there are different tools, different risks, and different ways of getting them done, right? So today we're going to be talking about strategic change to allow you to change the way and the services that you choose to deliver to your particular customers. When we think about AI strengths and weaknesses, and we look at the strategic change down there, really good at modeling scenarios, forecasting outcomes, and doing evidence-based planning. Not so good at cultural nuance, local priorities. We can do a bit of training in there, right, but just not straight out the box. And it really needs a bit of support to help make sure that you've got all the data aligned to give you the value that you're really after. Again, when we look at the risk factors in here, as we have done for process optimization and personal productivity, we have to be careful of a whole bunch of things in here, but really what we're looking at when we're looking at strategic changes is the ethical decisions and the LGA's reputation. Everything else is dealt with in the process and individuals, right? But the ethical decisions and the LGA reputation, the brand of the local government is what we're looking at when we think about strategic change. Do you really want to be that AI enabled LGA in that particular context? So we need to take that into account. So when we think about this and we're trying to understand how we would make strategic change, we need to understand that at each level, like we've talked about, AI serves different purposes. So we've got the three different levels there. And as we break that down, what that really means that if we want to make organizational change, we have to think of the organization as something that is made up of multiple teams who are delivering outcomes for customers. And all of those teams are linked together. So they have to function together to be able to drive the outcomes that we want from a strategic perspective. And all of those teams are, of course, made up of individuals. So in terms of driving strategic change, it makes a lot of sense that if we are able to empower those individuals as we go through, then we should see different ways of working in the processes and process optimization between teams, and indeed from those teams to external stakeholders as well. And this will lead to a different experience, or what we can call an AI empowered LGA or AI enabled LGA. Now for citizens, the difference in the experience can be quite substantial. We're thinking about services being on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we're not just talking about bots here, I should be clear on that. What we're talking about is it being personalized and timely. So as a citizen, I can choose how I engage with my LGA and when and through which medium. That means that you'll still have people who much prefer to turn up at the desk and talk to somebody or ring over the phone. But if 70% move to a line working with a virtual digital assistant, for example, who's trained on them, you don't have to deal with that 70% except in the circumstances where your skills are really, really required. It allows proactive solutions to issues before they escalate. So imagine being a citizen who's notified of things before they've even found out about them, and saying with the information saying what's going to be done about those things. That leads to fairer and more transparent decision making from a citizen perspective. They can see why the money's being spent where it's being spent. They can see how it impacts them as individuals, not just the whole LGA. And you get a whole more human connected experience with all the staff at your local government. And that's what we're vying for here, an experience for citizens whereby they get more face time with the humans, not less, more. From inside the LGA, as somebody who works for the LGA, the whole experience changes. It feels like I'm doing the job that I was hired for, to engage the people in the different parts of the organization or externally, as opposed to me doing the busy work around the administration. So it's about 40 to 50% of time is spent on administration. AI is there to help take on a lot of that burden so that it can be all about customer facing time. And that leads to predictive data-driven operations and maintenance, AI-informed planning and community sentiment, smarter targeted community services, which must be much more fulfilling than having to use blanket approaches for all citizens. Seamless AI supported customer service across channels, and staff empowered with AI tools for doing more value add work as opposed to busy work. The really big difference that we're angling for is that citizens don't even need to know that AI exists, right, or that it's there, but they feel the government is faster, fairer, and more responsive. So what are the steps to becoming an AI-enabled local government? Well, first up, we've seen every single time that foundational education helps lower the AI risk profile in your organisation. It also alerts people to the possibilities of what they can do with AI, and that leads to a safer usage of AI in your organisation. As they have that understanding and that foundational knowledge, they're able to identify process optimizations and opportunities. So we saw in the early days of generative AI, a same problem whereby organizations who were born in the cloud, who at a strategic level agreed that they were going to invest in AI, still took 16 to 18 months to actually change the way they did things, because they spent that time optimizing processes. People got their head around what could happen and how they could change it to deliver better worlds. So this is the steps that we need to take. You need to, of course, have a strategy and policy development in place. So you have got those boundaries in place as to where you use AI and how you use AI. The other thing to bear in mind is that those should constantly be reassessed, so about every 6 months, to make sure that you're in line with what the citizens are expecting, the engagement they're expecting, and the tools that have come onto the market. And then what we've also found is, because the world is changing so fast in this space, ongoing AI education plays a massive benefit in terms of helping people get over the border of, or over the barrier, of I've tried it but it didn't quite work, but I want it to work, so can you help me make it work? And these things make a big difference, again, keeping the risk profile down and making sure you still get some of the benefits off the back. So some of the considerations when we think about becoming an AI-enabled LGA are that you get a more innovative service delivery. So you're changing the way that services are delivered, and you're able to change the services that you choose to deliver, making you much more efficient and responsive to citizen needs. Now, of course, that has implications in there. If you're able to do things in 1 day rather than 5 days, what do you do with the other 4? So you need to be able to manage that change in terms of helping reallocate that time to value add activities, which again are citizen centric, which is what we saw in the federal government trials as well, by the way. 4 hours saved a week. People spent that time doing managerial activities, having conversations with peers and colleagues. It was a real benefit in there. Transparent communication is vital in this perspective. Now, obviously inside your LGA, when you're talking about how you're going to use AI, whether it's in your team or whether it's more broadly, you need to be very transparent about what you're trying to achieve. So we know that in the LGAs, you're 100% looking to work with our AI as a supplementary tool to helping you get your job done, right? These things need to be communicated. If you're starting to use AI tools with citizens, then you need those counsellors engaged so they understand what's going on. So if somebody's talking about it, you can actually have those conversations and explain the good sides as well as any of the concern, and address any of the concerns that the citizens may have. And in fact, we're now seeing that citizens may want to be engaged themselves in these processes as well. Continue to train staff and drive for adaptation. So we can monitor a lot of these things in real time, but education is massive, right? This is the basis for success right here. This is not a change management activity because we're not going to one thing. We're talking about continuous change over time. So training is a big deal here. And then inclusive community strategies. We touched a little bit on this, but how can you bring these things in to help you get closer to your community, to add greater value, right? It doesn't have to be a one for all. We can do bits at a time. So you need to consider these things when we're talking about becoming an AI empowered LGA. That's it for this video. Thanks again for taking the time to watch. Please subscribe, write some comments below, and if you would like to contact us, please do. And we look forward to hearing about your AI journey.